In this video, we are going to learn how to use data table from Shad CN UI in your Next.js project. This is the 11th part of our series where we are exploring each and every component of Shad CN. Our goal is to explore everything and explore every feature of Shad CN that we can utilize to enhance our productivity and speed up our development. So let's quickly begin. So first of all, in the Shadcn UI website, go to the docs and scroll down or click on the components, and here on the left side menu we have the data table documentation. Click on that, and as it is saying powerful table and data grids built using 10 stack table. So they used this third-party library 10 stack to implement all of the complex features of the data table, and then they made some wrappers around that library by using Shadcn and their custom logic. So let's quickly start using it. So this is the example that they are showing on their website. You can see this is the data table with these sorting buttons. You have the check mark that will allow you to select all of the visible items in this table. You can also search for the items. You will just type the email and it will search. Okay. And also you can decide which columns you want to display in this table and which ones you want to hide. And other than that, we have the pagination feature available. Currently, the number of items are too low to have the pagination buttons enabled. So once we will have more items in this table, these buttons would be enabled automatically. So to use it, the quick way is that you can just quickly click on this and copy paste the entire code in your project, and it will start working. But obviously you will have to install the dependencies, and if you scroll down you will find all of the step-by-step process that you would have to follow to set it up and install and start using it. Okay, so this is the installation method. There are these main two steps. First you need to install these dependencies, then you need to install the 10 stack table. So this would basically create a table component in your project and add some dependencies, and this is the package.json dependency that you would have to install. So let's quickly read through this description. In the introduction, it is saying every data table or data grid I have created has been unique. They all behave differently, have specific sorting and filtering requirements, and work with different data sources. It doesn't make sense to combine all of these variations into single component. If we do that, we will lose the flexibility that headless UI provides. So instead of data table component, I thought it would be more helpful to provide a guide on how to build your own. We'll start with the basic table component and build a complex data table from the scratch. And they also providing a tip: if you find yourself using the same table in multiple places in your app, you can always extract it into reusable components. Then these are the table of contents that they have provided for this documentation. So this guide will show you how to use the 10 stack table and table component to build your own custom data table. We'll cover the following topics: basic table, row actions, pagination, sorting, filtering, visibility, row selection, and reusable components. This is the approach that I would do. So first of all, I would just quickly want to use this code just to see how it looks in my app, just to make sure that things works in my project as well. And once I do that, I would also like to follow these step-by-step guide to add things manually one by one, so that I could understand what's going on and how to combine all of the pieces together to make something functional in this data table. So before copying and pasting this code, I would have to install these dependencies. To just click on that button. This command would be copied on your clipboard, and go back to your project and open a new terminal. And this terminal should be opened in the root directory of your project. And now paste the command, press enter. Meanwhile, I will copy the next command that we need to run. I have opened this tab, source control, where you would notice all of the changes that it will make. So in this way, we will know what files it has created and what changes it will make to create and set up this table component for us. All right, on the left sidebar, you can see there are changes in two files. The table.tsx was created, and the global.css they made some changes. So if you open that, this is the difference. They just have added this piece of code, the tailwind css layer base, and they have added some tailwind css classes, and this is the new file that was created. So before looking at that file, let's quickly run the second command to install the 10 stack dependency. All right, it has been installed, and let's quickly take a look at the table.tsx. So this is all of the code that they have provided us to use. So you are free to make any change in this code. If you understand how to make changes in this, you can spend time to understand, but most of the time you don't need to go into the depth of this code. You can just look at their documentation and start using it, but you are free to make any change and to change any colors or anything by customizing these tailwind css classes. You can add extra tailwind css classes as well. All right, now let's quickly use it, as we have installed the dependencies. So I would like to just copy and paste this entire piece of code. So if you scroll down, you will find the name of this component. So the name of the main component is data table demo. So copy the code and create that new file, data table demo.tsx, paste the code, and now we are ready to use it. So go back to your page.tsx, and here I will just remove any other code and add data table demo component. Make sure to add the import statement on the top for that component. Save it, and let's go back to our web page, and you will see that the data table is working perfectly fine, and it is working in exactly same way like they shown on their demo website or documentation. So everything would be working in the exactly same way, nothing changed. Okay, so you saw that it is very easy to install and start using this code. So if you want, you can start utilizing it in your project. You can start adding the real data from your own backend or database. So if you want to do that, you can just make changes to this array. You can just add more items to this array if you want static data, but if you want dynamic data, then you may need some changes. For example, in your main component data table demo, here you would have to define a function that would call your backend to get the data from your backend, and you will use the React states to load that data in your state, and then you will be using the array from your state instead of that local hard-coded array. Okay, so I would just add few more items in this array so that I could show you the demo of the pagination really quick. I would just change the IDs because IDs must be unique. Now you would see that I have more data there, but still pagination was not activated. So I would find a configuration somewhere that would allow us to decrease the limit for maximum items per page. So let's find that really quick. So it is really easy to customize the number of items per page. Here there is a property in the use react table function. In this object, just type initial state, then type pagination, and there is a property page size. Here you can specify what number of items you want per page. So let's say we want 2 items per page. So just type that, save it, and go back to the browser, and you will see that now we have only 2 items per page and the pagination has been enabled. And you can click on the next button and it will take you to the next page and previous page as well. Now I'm going to start from scratch, and we will follow the documentation step by step to see how things works internally, how to combine things all together to make a completely functional data table with the help of Shad CN components. So let's begin. we already have followed the installation step. Now we have prerequisites. We are going to build a table to show recent payments. Here what our data look like. So they have provided a shape for our data. We have an array of payments, and every item in that array would be an object with the details of every payment. Then we have the suggested project structure. So we should have a payments folder in the app directory. Then we should have the column folder, data table, and page. So this is just a recommendation. You can use your own naming convention or folder structure. So now let's quickly create a folder, payments, in the app directory, and let's create all these 3 files in it. First file is columns.tsx. Then we need data table.tsx. Then we need page.tsx. Okay. So I'm using a Next.js example here, but this works for any other React framework. So columns.tsx, this is going to be client component, and it will contain our column definition. Then we have data table.tsx, that would also be a client component, and it will contain our data table component. Then we have the page.tsx, that is going to be a server side component, and this is where we will fetch data and render our table. So let's start by building a basic table. First, we will define our columns in the columns.tsx. I'm just going to copy paste this entire code and paste it here. So here we have column def component from the tanstack/react-table, and we have specified that it is going to be a client side component. And here it is saying that this type is used to define the shape of our data. You can also use a Zord schema here if you want. So we have amount, status, and email type, and in the columns we have used the column def type from the tanstack react table and passed the payment type as the generic type. And in this array we have 3 items, and every item is going to be a column in our table, and this is the accessor key. So this is going to be the unique name that will tell it that which property we need to target from our actual data objects to show in that column. And this is going to be the label for every column. You can make any change here. So these labels can be anything, but these accessor keys are very special, and these must match your property names that are coming in the objects and arrays from your backend. So after that, here it is saying columns are where you define the core of what your table will look like. They define the data that will be displayed, how it will be formatted, sorted, and filtered. Now it's time to complete the data table component. We will create a data table component to render our table. So it is going to be in this file. So copy the code and paste it here in this file, and let's quickly observe what we have pasted here. So we have converted this into a client side component, and we imported some dependencies from a tanstack react table, and we imported some components from Shadcn table component that we created earlier in the components/UI folder. So we are importing a column def, flex render, get core row model, use react table. And then we have created an interface with the name data table props that will have the columns and data. Data is going to be the array that we will be getting from the backend that will basically display the actual data. So in the data table component, this is our main component and it is exported. We created our table instance by calling the use react table function, and we passed it the data that we want to display. We passed it the columns that we will be getting from the props, and we have passed it the response of this function execution get core row model that is imported from the tanstack react table. Then we have this main div. Then we have the table component. Within the table component, we have these 2 further child components, table header and table body. In the table header, we are getting the header groups from the table and mapping through it. And when we use map, we get header group in every iteration, and on every iteration we are printing this or rendering this table row component, and we are passing the ID of every header group in the key prop. And within the table row, we are again mapping through the header group dot headers property, because headers is an array here. In that map loop, we are returning another component, table head. So that would basically create the elements for the columns. And in the table head, we have the ternary operator condition, where we are checking if this is a placeholder, then don't display anything. But if it is not a placeholder, then flex render, then call this flex render function that would do some rendering for us. And this function would expect the header dot column def dot header and header dot get context. By the way, you don't have to understand all of this until you really need to understand it, because you just have to make changes in the columns to match your requirements, or you just have to change the logic where you're getting the data or where you are feeding it the data. Otherwise, it is not compulsory for you to understand all of this. So I'm just going through all of this code just to give you idea that what they are doing, but everything is already functional and tested by the Shad CN UI team. So after that, we have the table body section, and in the table body we have the ternary condition, where we are checking that if there is data to show, then show this part. If there is no data, then show this part. And if there is no data, we will just simply display table row with the table cell. And we are using call span because we want to show only one column in that table. That's why we added the call span. And we use the number of columns to span. And here we will display our message, no result. You can feel free to make change in this message. And if there is a data, then we will render our table row. In the table row, we are passing the state in every row because our rows are selectable. So here we have to pass the state that if it is selected. So to get the selected state, we will just call the get is selected function. And if it is selected, then we will save the selected string in this data dash state property or prop. And then here we are getting the get visible cells array and mapping through it. And in every iteration we have a cell to display. So we are rendering then table cell component. We are again calling the flex render function that will take the cell and cell dot get context. So you don't need to make any change in this. So this would stay as it is. As I mentioned, you just have to make the changes in your logic to get the data and to define the columns. Okay. All right. Now let's move forward. Here we got another tip. If you find yourself using data table in the multiple places, this is the component you could make reusable by extracting it to components /UI/datatable.tsx. So as currently this data table component is living in the payments folder, but as they're suggesting that if you started to use the same data table component in other places as well, other than the payments feature, then it's better to move this file into the components/UI folder, because now that is generic, because this is created only once. Most of the time you would never change it, and this is multi-purpose. You can use it in any other features where you would be displaying the data table. So in that case, it would be better if you move it into the components/UI folder. But for now, we are not going to use in multiple places, so I would just keep it here. So this is just a suggestion, and this is how we are going to use it. Data table. It will take two props, columns and data. In the columns prop, we will pass an array of columns. In the data prop, we will pass the data. Then it's time to render the table. So finally, we will render our table in our page component. So copy this entire code, go to the page.tsx, paste the code. And here we imported the columns from the columns folder. And then we imported the data table from the data table.tsx file that we just created. Then we have the get data function that is responsible to get data from our backend server. Currently, for the sake of simplicity, they have hard coded an array here, but I would also add some example for you to demonstrate how you would be fetching from the backend API. That would be pretty straightforward. You will just be using the fetch function. Okay. After that, we have the page component, and here we are getting the data from this function, and we are using await because in the real world example it would be getting from the server and it would take some time and it would be returning the promise in that case. Anyways, now we imported the data table and passed the columns and data. So columns are coming from this file, data is coming from this function, and just save it. Okay, now it's time to go to the payments route because this is a separate route in the payments folder. So type /payments. All right, you can see our table is ready. It is very simple right now. There is no checkbox, nothing. There is no column selection on the top right, and there's no search feature yet, but I will continue following their other examples and documentation steps that would help us to understand how to add those complex features gradually, step by step. So currently, as we had only one item in this array, that's why there is only one row. If you just copy paste it multiple times, you would notice that it would quickly add those rows for you. Okay, so there is a fake REST API that you can very easily use to quickly test your app or for doing any experiments like we're doing here. JSON placeholder. So this is how you are going to try it. So copy this URL and open it in the new tab, and this is all you got. These are all of the tasks that we have available. So just copy the URL. And by the way, one thing that is very important, this data has a different shape or structure, so you must have to go back to your columns definition and you have to make relevant changes accordingly. So here we need to add the user ID. Actually, before that we have to make change in this shape. Obviously now this is not a payment anymore, this is a different thing, but I would not change the name. I would just add the new properties. So we have the user ID. Actually, ID would stay as it is. We would have the user ID, we would have the title here, and it is going to be a type of string, and then we will have the completed property here. Okay, and now you can then definitely make a change in the name of this interface, that is going to be to do. Okay, after that, here I would like to show the ID, and second column is going to be the user ID. You see that I am making sure that this property, this string is exactly same as we have in our data structure that is coming from the backend. And in the header, in the title, or in the label of that column, I'm going to show user ID, and third one is going to be the title, and the label is going to be title with capital T, and then we will have the completed property. After that we have the header completed. Save it. Now it is not payment anymore, this is to do, and paste it here. Okay, and I'm going to get rid of this because we are now going to get data from the real REST API that is live. So here I will use fetch function and pass it the URL, and here I would use await and save the response in a new variable, a constant response, and then I would use response.json, and again I would create a constant, and here I would use await. Okay, because JSON function would again give you a promise that you have to resolve. Now we got the data, I just need to return this data. Okay, let me remove this extra to do. Okay, now everything else would stay same. So let's go back to our app. This time you see we have a lot of data, and all of that data is coming from the backend. If you just want to see, go to the inspect element, go to the network, and reload it. I guess it has cached the response. That's why we cannot see it again. So I would just stop the server and start it again just to show you a network request that is going. So let's reload it. Oh, okay. I got it. So we cannot see the network request because you see that we are sending the API request in the page.tsx, and the page.tsx is a server side component. So if this is a server side component, then any API call that you're making in that would stay invisible from the client side. You cannot see it in the network because this is going running on the backend server. Okay, so that is good to know. All right, now let's proceed to the cell formatting. Let's format the amount cell to display the dollar amount. We will also align the cell to the right. We already have seen how to make the API request, so I'm going to undo everything because I want to stay consistent with the documentation so that we could quickly follow along. So I just press the Command Z several times to revert it back to where it was earlier. Okay, I have done the undo here as well. Excellent. So update column definition, update the header and cell definitions for amount as follows. So in the columns.tsx, so this is going to be interesting. Earlier we had only two properties in the columns objects, and those were just hard-coded strings, but now we have the functions for the header and cell. So in the header, you can either pass the hard-coded string or you can return a function that would be fully dynamic and that would be rendered. So for example, you return the hard-coded string here and that was displayed there instantly. But here, if you want to display some HTML, you will just return an HTML like this. You will add a function here and return something like return. Here I will add strong tag and add status. Okay, you can see status is bolder than other columns. You can make any changes in the styles as well. Red. Okay, so in this way you can make it, you can have more control on the visibility of your columns if you want to. So that is what they are showing in this example. So let's just copy this piece of code and paste it here. Here they have just added the Tailwind CSS class to align the text to the right because this is the amount. Actually, not here. It is for the amount column. Let me revert it back. So here I will replace the header with the function type. Okay, now if you go back, you would notice that the amount is aligned to the right. Now there's a function for the cell. So earlier we did not mention the cell property, but if you want to control the visibility of the cells where you display the value for every field, you can do that as well very easily. For example, here you will add cell, and if you go back to the documentation, in the cell we will receive the entire row for that iteration, for that specific iteration. Okay, so let's extract the row from this, and here to get a value from the row you have to call a function get value. So let's do that. Return row dot get value, and you have to pass the exactly same property name that you have defined here, amount. Okay, save it. You will see no difference yet because we did not make any change, but here if you wrap it in some React syntax in a HTML element like div, and maybe I will add a style here and text. Actually, let me use a Tailwind class here to change the color. Text blue, save it. Okay, you can see I have changed the color of every cell for the amount field. So now, as you have seen how we can customize the cell, I would just copy paste the exactly same code that they have provided. Okay, and here you can see that we are getting the amount and we are using the parse float function of JavaScript, and now we are formatting our amount in English-US format. The style is currency and the currency is going to be USD, and then we are calling the format function on our amount that would format it automatically. Now let's quickly look at it, how it is going to look. Here we are returning the div with the Tailwind CSS classes. Text right and font should be medium, and this is the formatted amount. Let's go back and see. It is looking awesome now. It has added the dollar sign and the decimal 00 at the end. Perfect. Now you can use the same approach to format other cells and headers. And now it's time to add the row actions. Let's add row actions to our table. We will use a drop-down component for this. Update our column definition to add new actions column. The actions cell returns a drop-down component. So we have to import this icon more horizontal in the columns.tsx file, paste that code as it is, and then we need to import these two statements, button and drop down menu from the component /UI /drop down menu. By the way, if you are doing it first time, you might not have the button component and the drop down menu component. So in that case, you might watch my other videos where I have demonstrated how to add these things, or you can just directly click on these links like button and you can follow along this documentation to install the button dependency, and then you need to add the search for the drop down. So this is the drop down menu documentation, and if you click on that, it will show you the example that how it will look like. So you just have to copy this command, paste it, and you are ready to use this code. So as I have installed these dependencies already in the past videos, that's why I don't see any error and this path is correct for us. We just have to use these components. Okay, let's go back to our documentation for the data table. So in the columns, we need to add another object that would reflect another column that is going to be actions. So let's copy that and we are going to add it at the end. Okay, so this time we don't have the accessor key because we are not going to target the data for this column. We just want to add some hard-coded column, and its ID is going to be actions, and we don't need the header. We just need the cell. Okay, so here we are formatting the cell in every row for this column. So in this, first we are getting the payment that is row.original. So this would give us exactly same JSON object that we are getting from the backend and we're saving it in the payment constant, and then we are returning the drop down menu, and this is the trigger that would open the menu. And then let me quickly show you what it looked like. So it has added this icon. If you click on that, it opened the drop down menu on the right side, and on the top there is no text yet, but if you want, you can add that text as well. Like here you can add header and you can call it actions. Okay, save it, and you can see actions text is visible there. And after that we have the drop down menu content, and here you are specifying the direct alignment, and here these are all of the items. So this is the label and these are all of the items. So you can add your own items or you can make any change. Customized item, save it, and you can see customize items. So you can feel free to make any change in these items. You can add your own items. You can also add the click event on this. For example, if this is the delete button, delete and add it, you can add a click event on click, and you can call the alert function hello world. So let's try that. Click, you got the alert. Here instead of showing alert, you can call your backend function that would delete the item from the backend, and you would like to add a separate function defined somewhere up and then call that function here. So that's it. Now let's move further. You can access the row data using row.original in the cell function. Use this to handle actions for your row. Use the ID to make a delete call to your API. Okay, so in the alert, I would also show you how you would get the ID. Here you would just add plus for concatenation and use payment.id. Save it. So let's click on that. We got the ID. You can see ID is visible in the alert message, and you can use this ID to pass to your backend to delete it. And after that, we will see how to add pagination. So next we will add pagination to our table. Update the data table file. We have to add the get pagination row model function. So let's do that like this. Save it, and then in the use React table function here, we need to add this new property get pagination row model, and after that this will automatically paginate your rows into pages of 10. So see the pagination docs for more information on customizing page size and implementing manual pagination. So if we click on that, it will take you to this third-party library documentation tanstack.com table. And by the way, if you want to go in depth, or if you want to see all of the possibilities, and if you want to have more understanding, if you want to do any kind of customizations, if you want to achieve something more than Shadcn has done for you, you can feel free to go to this Tanstack documentation and read through it, and you can understand how things are working internally. You can look at their APIs and all of the possible available functions that you can use, because all of these functions, all of these features are already available to you because they are using Tanstack. So you can definitely use these functions in case if you need them. Okay. So now let's quickly see if pagination is working. Nope, it did not work yet. Let me reload it. Okay, so let's read it again. This bit, this would automatically paginate your rows into pages of 10. See the pagination docs. Okay, so first of all, we have very little data at the moment. That's why we don't see any difference. Second thing is that we don't have the pagination control, so that's why we don't see any difference. By the way, as they are showing in the documentation that currently by default it will limit maximum number of items of 10 per page, you can definitely change it very easily like we did earlier. Here you will add the property initial state that will take an object, then we have the pagination property, then we have another property page size. Okay, here you can add 2. Now you would notice that it would show only 2 items. You can set it to 1 as well like this, but I will keep it 2. Okay, so in that way, as we had total 3 items, so now it is showing 2 items. That's mean we have total 2 pages that we can display, and that would be visible automatically once we add the controls. We can add pagination controls to our table using button component and the table.previous page and table.next page API methods. All of these methods are definitely available in their documentation. You can see next page function. You can go through it and see all of the possibilities. Okay, now let's import the button component. Let's copy it, paste it like this, and then we need to add this div to wrap everything. Okay, so let's div and move it into another div. And then we need to add all of this code, just copy paste all together, and we will go through it quickly after pasting it here, and make sure we have to paste it after this div. So for that I would collapse this div that has these classes. Let me format it. Okay, after that paste your code, and now let's quickly scroll down. See reusable components section for more advanced pagination component. Okay, we will go to that shortly. Okay, you can see we have the pagination ready to be used. So you can just see that we have 2 pages. This is the first page, this is the last page. That's why the next button got disabled. This is the first page, that's why the previous button is disabled at this page. And nothing fancy here, just a regular tailwind CSS button with the click event and disabled. So it would be disabled if get can previous page is true for it. Okay, so this is how you will know if it should be disabled or not. So if it cannot go to the next page, then it should be disabled. And on click, you will just call the previous page or next page button from the table. Okay, that's it. Now let's explore the sorting, how to implement sorting. Let's make the email column sortable. So in the data table, we need to import the React. So let's do that like this. And then we need to add the get sorted row model from the Tanstack here like this. And then we need to create our state in the data table. So here I would put my use state, and sorting state is not defined yet. So sorting state should be imported from the Tanstack like this. Okay, so Yeah, they are also telling in the documentation that we need to import these two dependencies. All right, after that, in the use React table function, we need to add these three new properties. Let's copy them as find that. Okay, here I would just paste it. So we have on sorting change. We will just call our set sorting function of our state that would update our state, and then we are passing get sorted row model to the get sorted row model property. Then in the state we are passing our own local state that we just created above. Okay, so now let's uh, make the cell sortable, because sorting is implemented but you still cannot click because the column is not sortable. So for that, we can now update the email header cell to add sorting controls. So go to the columns.tsx, and here for the email, earlier we had just the hard coded string for the header property, but this time we need a proper function that would add some advanced features to it. So let's paste it here. Make sure to import the arrow up down icon. Okay, and in here we are just returning the tailwind cs the Shad CN UI button with the variant ghost, and on the click we are using a ready-made function toggle sorting from the column that we are getting from the parameter, and we are checking if is sorted, then show the if it is if sorting is equal to ascending, then we will return the true. So it would stay like this as it is, and then we're using the icon. Now let's go back to the documentation. This will automatically sort the table ascending and descending when the user toggles on the header cell. So let's try it. Okay, we see that sorting icon here on that column. If you click on that, it will sort it, but currently I don't see any sorting because all of the emails are same. So we have to make change to that email. Here I can add, let's say, A, B and C here, save it. Okay, now you can see it is sorting. Great. After that, we have the filtering feature. So let's add the search input to filter the emails in our table. So for that, I need to add in the data table.tsx, I need to import column filter state from the 10 stack like this, and I need to add the get filtered row model like this. Okay, and then we need to import the input component. If you don't have the input Shad CN UI component yet, then you have to go to this link and follow the instruction. Just copy this command and run it, and your input component would be ready to be used. Okay, now in the data table we have to create our state. Copy this state and scroll down, and here paste this state code. So this name is column filters, set column filters, and we're passing the column filter state that we got from here. Okay, now in the use React table, we will have to copy these two on column filters change and get filtered row model. So paste that here, and in the state we need to pass the column filters. Okay, so this is the state that we created above. Now above this table div that where we have rounded -md class, let's find that. Yes, this above this we have to copy and paste this piece of code. Let's do that. Okay, so this would add the input, and in the value we are getting the value from the column email get filter value, and we are listening to the change event. If user typed something, immediately we will use the column function of the table. We get the email column, we will set filter value and pass the value from the input event. Okay, save it. Filtering is now enabled for the email column. You can add filters to other columns as well. See filtering docs. If you click on that, it will again take you to the 10 stack actual documentation, and you can go through it to understand. We have multiple guides for different type of filtering. We have column filtering, we have global filtering, we have fuzzy filtering, we have column faceting and global faceting. I don't know what it is, but you can go to those type of filtering, search them on internet. For example, you can search 10 stack fuzzy filter, and it will give you the most recent link for the API, and you can read it from here. Okay, anyways, now let's quickly test it. So we have the input. Let's search for the email example.com. Okay, so you can see that on change we are just targeting the email. Okay, we are not targeting the others. Now adding column visibility is fairly simple using 10 stack visibility API. So let's go back to the data table and we need to import another dependency visibility state, and then we need to import the drop down menu component here. Let's import it, and then we need to create another state for the column visibility. So along with other states, I will just paste it here and now copy this property. Okay, now let's copy this piece of code and paste it here on column visibility change, and in the state we have to pass the state that we just created. Okay, now down below, after the input within the same div, we need to add the drop down. So let's copy paste the drop down like this, and I think that's it. So this adds a drop down menu that you can use to toggle the column visibility. So let's try it. Currently, we have all of these these columns visible. Let's click on them and to hide the visibility, to change the visibility. Okay, you can see it is working perfectly fine. So you see how easy it was to add this visibility feature. I know that if you have to add it manually, you have to write the logic by yourself, then you will have to make some extra hard work to make that possible. But how simply, how beautifully it has implemented this feature for you, that will save your time a lot. Next feature is the row selection. Currently we don't have the row selection, so let's quickly add the row selection feature to our table. So for that we need to update the column definition. So go to the columns.tsx and we need to add another object as a column. So I'm just going to copy and paste it as it is. Select that, and here the very first column should be the checkbox column, and make sure to import the checkbox component. If you don't have installed the checkbox component yet, then you have to go to the checkbox component in the Shadcn documentation and run this command to install the dependencies for you. Once done, this checkbox would be visible, I guess. Here no, it is not visible yet, but it would be visible because you would have to go to the data table, and create a state row selection, and then on row selection change we will pass our set row selection state, and this is the state row selection. We have to pass it in the state object. Okay, this adds a checkbox to each row and a checkbox in the header to select all rows. So let's quickly see if that worked. Reload it. No, it is not working. Let me see what's wrong. I don't know what we missed. I followed everything, but it did not work. What might be the reason? Maybe the icon. Yes. So the issue was the checkbox. Actually, VS Code automatically imported the checkbox for me, but I don't want that. I must have to use the checkbox component from the Shadcn. So paste that and this would fix the problem. And here you can see we are able to select all those. You can click on this main checkbox to select all items, or you can select few of them. So this is also a complex feature that was implemented for us by Shadcn UI, and it is now very easy to implement in your own projects. So very nice. So let's quickly look at the item that it has added for us to add that check mark column. So we have an object, we have the ID select, it can be anything, so it doesn't matter. Then we have the header and cell property, then we have the enable sorting and enable hiding. So we intentionally disable both of these features. You cannot sort it because this is a checkbox. You cannot show the check mark column in the columns drop down because you never want to hide it. So that's why we had to set them false. And in the header we have the header function, and we are returning a checkbox Shadcn component with the checked drop. So we are deciding when to show this light check mark and this fully black check mark. So if any of these two things are true, then we will show the indeterminate. Okay, here we are returning true. So if all items are selected, then we will just return true. And here we are using the or operator, that if this is not true, if all items are not selected, then we will check. If only few items are selected, then return the indeterminate string to the checked prop. If that's the case, then it will show this kind of check mark, you can see, without any background color, so that would reflect the indeterminate mode. And in the cell, we are simply written the checkbox, and we are checking if we should check that row or not by calling the get is selected function on our row. And on checked change, we will just have to call the toggle selected function from the row, and we are passing the true or false by this. Okay, and that's it. So this is another interesting addition. You can show the selected rows. Currently, when you select rows, we don't see any text that will display how many rows were selected and how many rows are available. So you can show the number of selected rows using table.get filtered selected rows row model API. So let's just copy it and paste it somewhere. Go to the data table, and I guess below the data table we can show this kind of information. Like after this div, let's paste it, save it, format it, and you see we have the informative text visible. You can select, and this would be showing the information in the real time. Now we have section for reusable components. Here are some components you can use to build your data tables. This is from the tasks demo. So what is the task? Open the task. So this is very nice example created by the Shad CN that will display a to-do list that is implementing the task component. This is very complex data table, but very nice to have in your projects, to have rich features and user-friendly features. So they are just showing you how you can achieve same. So make any column header sortable and hideable. For that, let's expand it. They have made this sortable component, and the name of the component is data table column header, and it has this content for that component. So if you scroll down, so in the columns definition, you just have to use it. So let's quickly use it. This is very interesting to have because currently we have just a button. There is no drop down, but it is nice if you have other options, like if you want to sort it in descending order or ascending order, or you want to cancel the sorting. So this would make that possible. So let's first create the file for this component. The file would be data table column header. So in the demos, I will create a new file with that same name, tsx, and now copy the code, paste it. Okay, so here I would just quickly go through it. We have the trigger, and in the trigger we have a button. If you click on that, it will show a drop down menu, and these are all of the items in that drop down menu. We have ascending order, descending order, and the hide. So in the ascending, it will toggle the sorting with the false. Then in the descending, we are passing true, and if you click on the hide, then it will toggle the visibility to false. Okay, now let's go back to the columns.tsx, and for the email, I'm going to copy the header property and find the email where it is. Okay, here is the email. So I will delete the old header property. Okay, and paste it here. Now we need to import this data table column header that we just created earlier. Just import it like this. We don't need this icon anymore. Delete that. And now let's test it. So this is the icon. Click on that. This time it is showing the drop down menu. That is very nice to have, and this will really improve the user behavior. So click on the descending, click on the ascending. You will see that sorting is still working, and we have the hide. If you do that, that column would be hidden immediately, and it is unchecked in the columns drop down. Amazing. Okay, so these are extra features. So they are just showing you some nice additions that they have in this advanced example. Like recently we added this feature, and now they are showing how to add this kind of feature, that you can change the rows per size by adding this drop down as well. This is also very easy. So for that, expand it. So this will include the page size and the selection control, and this is the function or component that we need to create, data table pagination. So go to the demos or wherever you want to save it, create a new file with the name and add tsx at the end, and copy this code, paste it here, and I will look at it at this code later, but before I would like to use it, just copy it and go to the data table, and here I will paste that piece of code. Make sure to add the import statement for this new component. Okay, so it should be imported like this, as you can see here, and save it. Now go back to the app, and here you can see we have all of these advanced controls, and we don't need these because it is now being duplicated. We don't need these next and previous because we have advanced features. So let me delete above next and previous buttons, and also we don't need this because we already getting that from the data table pagination component, so just remove that. Okay, we just need to add some line breaks above it, so add the BR tag. Okay, looking perfect. So now you can go to the next and previous page, you can go to the last page and the first page, and you can control how many items you want to show per page. So if you select 10, then it will show maximum 10 items per page. As we have less items than 10, that's why the pagination is disabled, because there is only one page. Okay, if you have more items than 10, then pagination would start to work automatically. After that, they are talking about the column toggle, column to toggle column visibility. So data table view option. So let's see what it is about. I will quickly copy the code like we did earlier. Actually, first before doing that, copy the name of the component, data table view options. Okay, so in the demos, I will create a new file, paste it, tsx, copy the code, paste it here. Okay, now scroll down. This is how you are going to use it. Copy the code, go to the data table.tsx, and I guess I would add it on the top here, maybe add it, paste. Make sure to add the import statement for this new component and format it. Okay, now we have this view. We already had columns, but now we have the view, and this is doing the same thing that we had earlier. So for example, you can toggle the visibility, but now it is in a separate reusable component. Earlier we had that logic within our data table, but now they guided us how to shift that part in a separate component. So we can now get rid of the drop down. So let's do that. Select all that and delete it. Okay, now this is coming from, let me move it here. So this is coming from a separate component that will make our component, our code more neat and clean and easy to manage and easy to maintain. Okay, so let me remove all these unused code. So that's it, everything is completed. So that's all I wanted to show you in this video. This video has gone too long, but I hope that I was able to provide you some value and you enjoyed this journey with me. If you think I provided you some value, then please like and share this video, and also subscribe to my YouTube channel, and don't forget to hit that bell icon to get notified for my upcoming series in this topic. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Goodbye.